Hello all, welcome to the second part of The Spider and the Fly. Now we will continue with the part from where we have left off and finish the poem. We will finish and give a brief summary to it so that it becomes easier for you to remember. So we read about the previous part where he is working craftily towards letting the guard of the fly down. "I thank you, gentle sir," she said, "for what you are pleased to say, and bidding you good morning now, I'll call another day." So what we notice is there is a change in the tone of the fly's refusal too. Not only is there a change in the tone of the spider, but also a change in tone of the fly. The earlier unhesitating tone of the fly now don't seem to be so strong. We wonder whether she is moved by the spider's endearments. There is the absence of the refrain, "Oh no, no," and this is remarkably important. We should not miss this. There is this absence of the refrain, "Oh no, no," and this we, the readers, have this fear arising in our minds that whether the fly is actually oscillating, whether she is thinking of letting her guards down. In the fifth stanza, we get a glimpse of the spider's mind and his evil motives as we read, "The spider turned him round about and went into his den, for well he knew the fly, silly fly, would soon be back again." So what is being told here? What he says is different from what he thinks, and here the more than a conversation, this does not begin with a conversation at first, the fifth stanza. Here we get an idea of the inner workings of his mind, and what he says is different from what he thinks, because so long he was praising the fly, and now he thinks that the fly is actually silly. He is confident that she has fallen into the honey-tongued scheme, and we will soon see how true is his thoughts, his thought process, evil though it may be. So he wove a subtle web in a little corner sly, and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. In order to be successful in his intentions, what did he do? He now lays a firmer ground and set his table ready to dine upon the fly. So he is laying the table for his future meal. Now, after preparing his ground, he comes out. Then he came out to his door again, and merrily did sing, "Come hither, hither, pretty fly, with the pearl and silver wing." So he walks out again, and baiting the fly, reels her with vivid flattery, which is enough to let her guards down. "Your robes are green and purple. There is a crest upon your head." So here crest refers to the crown, like the fly's antenna you must have seen. "Your eyes are like the diamond bright, but mine are dull as lead." So the spider is all praise of the fly, filling her mind with exquisite details. So previously he was praising her gauzy wings, which have now become in this stanza as pearl and silver wings. Brilliant eyes in the previous stanza have now become eyes like diamond bright. So he is trying his best to lure him and her into his trap. Alas, alas, how very soon this silly little fly, hearing his wily flattering words, came slowly flitting by. So the poetic lament is uttered here as one can only foresee her doom. So she finally gives in. She has finally fallen into the trap. So hearing his wily flattering words, came slowly flitting by. So devious sweet talk than the sweet words have finally made her fall into the trap. She draws nearer to the spider's home, though guardedly, but her downfall is near. She guardedly tests the waters as she puts aside her sensible spider sense that we spoke about in the first video, and also in the context of the poem, where there are certain instincts that work, that talks about your safety, that hints at your safety, which most of the time lands us into trouble if we ignore them. She puts aside her sensible spider sense and slowly walks towards her downfall. With buzzing wings, she hung aloft, then near and nearer drew, thinking only of her brilliant eyes. So, unheeding her instincts, she is finally lured, as she is mesmerized by her beauty. She does not realize the danger that she has subjected herself to. So she finally believes the spider's words, and the spider must be happy because this plan has finally succeeded. And thinking only of her brilliant eyes and green and purple hue. So whatever the praise that the spider has showered on her, she is now admiring herself very carefully, ignoring the impending doom. Thinking only of her crested head, poor foolish thing, at last, up jumped the cunning spider and fiercely held her fast. So, one interesting thing happens here is the word at last. At last is an example of enjambment, and it serves dual purpose. It hints at the fly as a poor thing. Her foolishness is exposed at last, means you can read this line together. Poor foolish thing at last. And then you can also break it up and read as at last up jumped the cunning spider and fiercely held her fast. So it can also mean that the spider was finally successful in getting his meal. So in these lines, the deadly designs of the spiders, the web or spider's home is exposed, and the spider wastes no time in putting or bringing a grisly end for the fly. He dragged her up. Now how he is treating her is expressed. He dragged her up his winding stair into his dismal den. Dismal den is an example of alliteration. Within his little parlor, but she never came out again. So just like she expected and repeated 3 times in her previous refrain, she did not come out again. So previously when she was expressing with all her intelligence that no one comes out and she is not going to enter the home, she finally submits to it. So her lessons do not work for her. She is foolish enough, stupid enough to ignore them. Now the poet ends the line as, "And now, dear little children, who may this story read, to idle, silly, flattering words I pray you ne'er give heed." So with a change of narration in the final stanza, the poem wraps up the moral message present in the text. The poet or the poetess advises the young readers to be aware, not listen to insincere and sweet talk, and be distrustful of useless talk. Not all praise is genuine, as she says, Mary Bottom, how it says, "To idle, silly, flattering words I pray you ne'er gave heed, and to an evil counselor close heart and ear and eye, and take a lesson from this tale of the spider and the fly." So she's telling that she's advising us not to come into contact with such people who has such kind of evil motives, who pretend to be good counselors, but they are actually the evil ones. And the readers should learn from the story and be careful. So the spider and the fly, as we move towards the end, and just like a brief summary I would like to tell. So the spider and the fly may be very insignificant creatures. They may not be quite important to us, may not be considered important for poetic expression, but their story has immense didactic value, an important lesson to be learned. And England, if you take it in the context of the time it was written, England paid a terrible price because Chamberlain, instead of confronting Hitler, tried to placate him by soft words and actions. If you go into the history of that time, which I am afraid I will not be able to analyze so much in this poem, because we will be in that case moving away from the topic that we are discussing. Probably if you want me to discuss, please comment in the comment section, and we may have a nice lovely class on this, what probably worked as an influence or influenced this poem, or how one should draw lesson from the history, or we may discuss a lot. So here England paid a terrible price because Chamberlain, instead of confronting Hitler, tried to placate him by soft words and actions. The demise of so many monarchies the world over happened because of these wicked minded courtiers who flattered the monarchs day in and day out. So, it is very important for us, the readers, and for whoever is reading or has heard or learnt about this poem, that we should not forget the lessons of this didactic short story of the spider and the fly. Maybe it is, even if it is there in our syllabus, even if it is not there in our syllabus, it is important that we in our life try to understand who is important to us, what is important for us, and try. Maybe we will make mistakes at first, but lessons are lifelong to be learned, isn't it? So that's it for today. Before we head on to our next poem, and hope you like this video, please do share it with the other people so that they may also see it, and subscribe to our channel One Stop All Poetry Solution, because our ultimate aim is to reach out to a wider audience so that everyone scores excellent marks in their exam irrespective of which board they belong to. Whatever poems you have, whatever suggestions you have, please don't forget to mention in the comments section. Like, share as much as you can, and if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the One Stop All Poetry Solution channel, because now we are available on Instagram, Telegram too. Enjoy this video and happy learning.